Welcome to a chilling journey into one of the most iconic supernatural films of all time, Poltergeist, 1982. In this video, we're peeling back the veil on 30 spine-tingling facts about the film that redefined paranormal horror for an entire generation. From Spielberg's behind-the-scenes influence to the infamous use of real skeletons, from childhood nightmares turned cinematic horror to the mysterious tragedies that birthed the infamous Poltergeist Curse, this deep dive reveals the real-life inspirations, eerie accidents, and hidden truths that haunt this classic to this day. Whether you're a lifelong fan or discovering Poltergeist for the first time, get ready to step beyond the screen and into the shadows of suburban horror. Flick off the lights, listen closely, and remember, they're here. 1. Inspired by real-life haunting. Despite its Hollywood polish, Poltergeist found its earliest inspiration in a documented case known as the 1958 Harriman House incident in Seaford, Long Island. A family complained of random popping sounds, bottles tipping over, and other bizarre disturbances, leading parapsychologists to investigate. Local media latched onto the story, describing events so strange they seemed ripped from a horror script, even though no definitive explanation ever emerged. While the final film took substantial creative liberties, the notion of a conventional suburban family facing an unexplainable force drew heavily from this real-life haunting account. The story made it clear that even in a typical family dwelling, unexpected and frightening phenomena might suddenly intrude, flipping daily life on its head. 2. Spielberg's original concept. Before ghosts became the center of the narrative, Steven Spielberg had been toying with an entirely different idea, tentatively called Night Skies, in which a farm family defended their home against hostile extraterrestrials. It was a much darker spin on alien encounters, featuring terrifying, aggressive beings rather than the friendlier alien scenario in E.T. Tobe Hooper, brought on board for his expertise in horror, suggested twisting the concept toward the realm of the paranormal. This seismic shift resulted in Poltergeist as we know it. By swapping out razor-clawed aliens for unsettled spirits, Hooper and Spielberg set the stage for a tale that draws fear from the notion that your own home, full of cherished memories and personal belongings, can suddenly become a sinister playground for malevolent forces. 3. Stephen King. Almost involved, Spielberg initially saw a dream collaboration in teaming up with Stephen King, the reigning master of horror literature. It was an idea that could have merged two visionary talents. But King's publisher asked for more money than Spielberg was willing to fork over, derailing the partnership. Michael Grace and Mark Victor were brought on to shape the script with Spielberg instead. King's distinct style, marked by slow-building tension, rich characterization, and psychological layering, would have offered a different flavor to the film. Even so, Poltergeist stands firmly on its own as a Spielberg-Hooper creation. One can't help but imagine the alternate universe where a Spielberg-King synergy gave birth to something equally iconic, but notably different in tone and pacing. Spielberg's contractual limit, an often overlooked legal detail, shaped the entire creation of Poltergeist. Due to his agreement with Universal while making E.T., Spielberg couldn't officially direct another film at the same time. Tobe Hooper was thus hired as the credited director. Yet Spielberg's passion for the project made him far more hands-on than a typical producer would be. This arrangement seeded all the controversy over who truly directed Poltergeist. It's likely that without those legal shackles, Spielberg might have simply worn the director's hat from the start. Instead, fans got a hybrid scenario that some critics argue only enhanced the movie's tone, merging Spielberg's family-oriented wonder with Hooper's horror sensibilities. 5. Twilight Zone. Inspiration. For avid fans of classic science fiction TV, Poltergeist carries strong echoes of Richard Matheson's 1962 Twilight Zone episode Little Girl Lost, in which a young child slips into a strange void behind her bedroom wall. Matheson noted the parallels, but wasn't credited. The dimension-hopping premise, where a child disappears into an interdimensional rift, shows up in Poltergeist through Carol Ann's entrapment on the other side. While the film expands on that concept extensively, injecting a poltergeist phenomenon and a full-scale haunting, the structural similarity to that Twilight Zone segment is striking. It illustrates how older anthology shows have influenced entire generations of horror and sci-fi storytellers. 6. Cheeseman Park. Influence. Poltergeist revolves around the horrifying truth that Cuesta Verde was built atop a relocated cemetery, relocated in name only. The sinister idea that not all bodies were properly moved might have been partly inspired by Denver's Cheeseman Park, developed over an old cemetery. Legend holds that workers slacked off or cut corners, leaving corpses under the park's manicured lawns. It's a macabre scenario with an uncomfortable real-world resonance, modern convenience trumping respect for the dead. By anchoring the film's terrifying payoff in a kernel of factual basis, screenwriters gave audiences an unsettling jolt. What if that brand-new housing development down the road has a similar backstory? 7. Spielberg's childhood fears. Fear of clowns, fear of creepy trees, and fear of being swallowed up by your own closet. These are very personal phobias that Steven Spielberg carried from childhood. Incorporating them into the script added an authentic sense of primal terror. Robbie's torment by the twisted old tree outside his window is an external realization of that feeling every kid has, gazing at a menacing silhouette of branches scraping the glass. Likewise, the film's iconic clown doll fiasco triggered a near-universal childhood nightmare. By weaving his own youthful anxieties into the story, Spielberg crafted scenes that connected viscerally with audiences who remembered lying awake in bed, heart pounding at the slightest shadow or squeak. 8. Directorial controversy. Officially, Tobe Hooper directed Poltergeist. However, many cast and crew members have reminisced about Steven Spielberg's enormous influence on set. Spielberg reportedly storyboarded many of the key sequences, guided the camera setups, and consulted with actors on how to interpret their scenes. Cast members like James Karen and Oliver Robbins, though, maintain that Hooper did direct them in person. This swirl of stories has generated decades of speculation about who truly commanded the production's creative helm. The reality likely involves a near-collaborative directorial dynamic. Spielberg, constrained by contractual obligations with Universal because of E.T., took a producer title but was more hands-on than usual, while Hooper tried to maintain creative direction for the horror elements. The result is a film that pulses with both Spielberg's flair for wonder and Hooper's knack for creeping dread. 9th DGA investigation. The Directors Guild of America took notice of the speculation swirling around Poltergeist. A Los Angeles Times article implied Spielberg was the de facto director, pushing Tobe Hooper into the background. The DGA launched an investigation to determine if Hooper's rightful credit had been overshadowed. Ultimately, they sided with Hooper, and Spielberg published a statement praising Hooper's work to quell doubts. This incident became a rare instance of the Guild stepping in to defend a director's authorship. It also underscores how integrated Spielberg was in the film's day-to-day creation. Despite the controversy, the end product still stands as a singular, cohesive piece. If you watch Poltergeist closely, you'll sense the subtle synergy of two creative minds with different yet complementary visions for horror storytelling. 10. Drew Barrymore's audition. It's intriguing to imagine how Poltergeist might have played out had a different child star been at the helm. Spielberg originally considered Drew Barrymore for Carol Ann. She was brimming with the sort of uninhibited energy he eventually harnessed for Gertie in E.T. But Barrymore's personality proved a bit too spirited for Carol Ann, who needed to be more gentle and quietly curious. Spotting Heather O'Rourke in the MGM commissary, Spielberg was instantly intrigued by her look. The audition sealed it. O'Rourke, with her wide-eyed innocence, perfectly embodied the curious child who connects with unknown forces from a flickering TV set. Barrymore fans can only wonder how different Poltergeist might have felt if she'd been the little girl whisked away by vengeful spirits. 11. Zelda Rubinstein's real mediumship. Zelda Rubinstein gave an unforgettable portrayal as Tangina Barons, the eccentric spiritual medium guiding the Freelings through a rescue mission in the spirit realm. In real life, Rubinstein claimed to have a genuine psychic background, often describing personal experiences with supernatural or cosmic phenomena. She once mentioned picking up on Tobe Hooper's distractions on set, possibly hinting that tensions simmered behind the camera. For her, playing Tangina wasn't just another acting job, it was an immersion into territory she believed in at some level. Her petite stature and commanding voice left a deep impression, and many viewers walked away feeling that Tangina, calm but firm in the face of terror, was the film's true spiritual compass. 12th. Rotating room effect. Among the film's eye-catching visual tricks, the rotating room sequence stands out for its sheer creativity. When Diane Freeling appears to be flung onto walls and ceilings, it wasn't just clever camera angles, it was a physical rotating set constructed specifically for this mind-bending effect. JoBeth Williams literally strapped in and braced herself inside a rotating box while the camera remained fixed. This made her look like she was being flung upside down by supernatural forces. Such clever practical approaches were essential in an era preceding the widespread use of CGI. The result is an immersive effect that retains its wow factor even decades later. Viewers often wonder how it was done, a testament to how old-school engineering can deliver timelessly eerie illusions. 13th Clown Doll. Mishap. In a film bursting with nightmare fuel, perhaps nothing triggers childhood trauma more than that clown doll in Robbie's bedroom. Late in the film, it springs to life, wrapping its gangly arms around Robbie's neck. The filming of this scene went terrifyingly off-script when the doll actually choked actor Oliver Robbins. Spielberg, thinking Robbins's struggling was method acting, didn't intervene until he saw the boy's face turning purple. The fiasco left everyone shaken. The final scene, though, retains the raw dread from that real panic. For many fans, the malevolent clown ranks among the creepiest horror dolls of all time, rivaling even Annabelle or Chucky. 14. Kitchen chair trick. The subtle build-up to full-blown terror is one of the reasons Poltergeist remains so effective. A prime example is the sequence where Diane casually turns around in the kitchen, then looks back to find the chairs stacked on the table in a bizarre tower. Achieving this hair-raising moment in a single take required classic camera misdirection. While the camera panned away from the table, crew members replaced the ordinary chairs with a neatly stacked configuration. When the camera swung back, the otherworldly stacking appeared to have happened in a split second. That seamless sleight of hand gave the scene an added layer of authenticity, making viewers question whether something supernatural had just transpired before their eyes. 15. Spielberg's hands in face-ripping scene. The film doesn't shy away from jolting moments of body horror, particularly when Marty hallucinates peeling away layers of his own face in the bathroom mirror. The gore-laden prop head was so specialized and expensive that there was only one chance to get the shot right. Spielberg, eager to ensure precision, volunteered his own hands to handle the prosthetic. Thus, the cameo nobody sees is Spielberg's off-screen manipulation of cinematic gore. The result is an unnerving sequence that might feel jarringly out of place in a family-driven story if not for the film's overall willingness to explore visceral shock. The contrast between the warm household environment and such horrifying visions deepens the sense of a once-safe domain being turned inside out. 16. Real maggots for steak scene. Continuing the theme of creeping body horror, there's the stomach-churning sequence where a raw steak slides across a kitchen counter and bursts with maggots. Relying on real maggots was an uncompromising decision that amplified the yuck factor. The prop team rigged the slab of meat with wires, enabling it to jerk and quiver while real maggots crawled inside it. Craig T. Nelson and other cast members were both horrified and intrigued, especially once they learned how those squirming bugs were handled. In an era when realism and shock were vital to hooking audiences, employing actual creepy crawlies was an unflinching choice. 17th. House implosion effect. One of the film's most jaw-dropping visuals is the complete implosion of the Freelings' house in the finale. The set piece was actually a 4-foot miniature rigged to a powerful vacuum system. Filming it in slow motion as it collapsed into itself generated a chilling spectacle, a perfect climax to the swirling supernatural chaos. Spielberg was reportedly so proud of that miniature that he kept its remains in his office as a trophy of sorts. This dramatic disappearance of a physical dwelling acted as a potent metaphor for the unraveling of normalcy, like the house itself had to vanish under the weight of its spiritual transgressions. 18. Real skeletons in pool scene. Perhaps the best-known production quirk that fueled countless rumors of a curse is the revelation that real human skeletons were used during the iconic backyard pool sequence. Actress JoBeth Williams, who starred as Diane Freeling, only discovered they were actual medical specimens after filming. They were, surprisingly, cheaper to procure than plastic replicas. While it certainly lent the scene an unsettling authenticity, the moral and emotional implications weighed heavily on some. Audiences found themselves horrified to learn that the thrashing and screaming in muddy water had been performed alongside authentic human remains. For superstitious observers, this choice crossed a taboo line, stirring the pot for those who believed the production had somehow invited genuine spiritual retaliation. 19. JoBeth Williams' pool fears. For JoBeth Williams, filming the muddy swimming pool scene proved nerve-wracking on multiple fronts. Beyond the skeletons, she worried about potential electrocution from camera lights or equipment near the water. Spielberg quelled her concerns somewhat by hopping into the pool himself, quipping that if any lights fell, they'd both fry. The comedic bravado didn't entirely erase the anxiety, but it bonded them in a show of solidarity. Williams later recalled that her genuine reactions in the scene weren't just about acting, they were also about navigating a genuine sense of danger, reinforcing the authenticity of the terror emanating from that murky water. 20. Poltergeist Curse. Origin. That pool sequence was just one of many elements that fed what pop culture now calls the Poltergeist Curse. The tragic deaths of several cast members seemed too heartbreaking to be coincidence. People speculated that the use of real skeletons upset spiritual balances, causing negative energy to linger around the production. Though rational minds see these losses as separate, unfortunate events, the very concept of curses has a way of taking root. The disturbing real skeleton detail, combined with the legitimate tragedies, formed a potent narrative that still haunts the film's reputation. Each new story about on-set weirdness became fuel for a modern Hollywood urban legend that refuses to subside. 21st. Dominique Dunne's tragic death. The heartbreak that anchored the film's curse narrative started with Dominique Dunne, who played the Freeling family's teenage daughter, Dana. Just months after Poltergeist premiered, Dunn was murdered at age 22 by her ex-boyfriend, John Sweeney. The murder was shocking both in its brutality and in how quickly it cut short the life of a promising young actress. Sweeney's prison sentence amounted to under 4 years, igniting public outrage over lenient punishment for domestic violence. For fans and cast members, Dunn's absence reverberated poignantly, and the film acquired an eerie afterglow. In the scenes featuring Dana, viewers were keenly aware they were watching a performer whose bright future had been so cruelly taken. 22nd. Heather O'Rourke's untimely death. The second major tragedy linked to Poltergeist occurred when Heather O'Rourke, who portrayed the angelic Carol Ann, passed away at age 12 in 1988. A misdiagnosed congenital intestinal issue led to fatal cardiac arrest. The tragedy struck just before the release of Poltergeist 3, leaving the final film missing its beloved lead under devastating circumstances. O'Rourke was the film's signature icon, the bearer of the unforgettable line, "They're here," which stands as one of horror cinema's greatest catchphrases. Her sudden passing amplified the sense that dark forces might be following those associated with the franchise. Although there's no empirical evidence linking Poltergeist to her medical issues, fan chatter about the curse soared, turning a mourning process into speculation about supernatural retribution. 23rd. JoBeth Williams' haunting experience. Things got extra creepy for JoBeth Williams when she noticed the artwork in her own home misbehaving during production. She claimed that pictures and paintings on her walls would repeatedly shift or hang askew whenever she returned from filming. While skeptics chalk this up to mere coincidence, Williams herself found the timing uncanny, like echoes of the Poltergeist phenomenon were leaking into her personal life. For an actress deeply entrenched in a film about vengeful spirits, those little domestic oddities might have felt like an off-screen extension of the movie's haunting aura. It's yet another detail that fueled talk of something intangible trailing the movie's cast. 24th E.T. connection. Poltergeist and E.T. share more than Spielberg. Both were shot in similar Los Angeles suburbs and, in a rare release schedule quirk, opened within a week of each other in June 1982. This turned that summer into a mega event for Spielberg fans, with E.T. offering a heartwarming alien friendship while Poltergeist delivered a harrowing spiritual crisis. Rumors circulated that certain sets overlapped, though no conclusive evidence supports that. Still, the synergy of these two iconic movies, one about contact with sweet extraterrestrials, the other about contact with malevolent spirits, cemented Spielberg's reputation for bringing big, imaginative stories to life. It was the Spielberg summer, marking an epoch in Hollywood where suburban landscapes became potent backdrops for extraordinary tales. 25th. Pizza Hut line. Cut. In an almost comedic example of corporate influence on filmmaking, a brief piece of dialogue referencing Pizza Hut got excised after the chain complained about the negative mention. Diane jokingly suggests eating there, and Steve replies, "I hate Pizza Hut," in a dismissive tone. The pizza giant balked at the brand damage, and the scene vanished, creating a subtle jump cut in the final film. This tidbit shows how brand sensitivities can shape a film's tiniest details, especially a film anticipated to be a hit, which sponsors and advertisers don't want tarnishing their public image, even with a single throwaway line. 26. MGM Lion Roar. Amid the film's sound design wizardry, there's an unexpected cameo in an especially chaotic moment, the legendary MGM Lion's Roar. Used as part of a ghostly attack sequence around the 100-minute mark, this iconic noise stands out for movie buffs who recognize the trademark studio staple. It's a playful Easter egg that acknowledges the studio behind the film. Horror fans, typically attuned to unsettling noises, might have double takes upon realizing that the roaring ghoul or spectral chaos includes the same roar that opened countless MGM classics. It's these little insider flourishes that deepen the sense of Poltergeist as a meticulously crafted cinematic tapestry. Irupatti, Year of the Doctor fantasy reference. If you have a sharp eye, you might catch a Holiday Inn marquee reading, "Welcome Doctor Fantasy and Friends." That's an in-joke referencing producer Frank Marshall's magician, alias Dr. Fantasy. Known for entertaining crew and cast with magic tricks, Marshall used the name as a personal brand of whimsy. Spielberg productions often included these playful Easter eggs, bridging the gap between real-life personalities and on-screen narratives. It's also a nod to the film's theme of illusions, where the line between mundane reality and supernatural showmanship blurs at any moment. That quiet cameo of Dr. Fantasy's name was less about scaring the audience and more about winking at the folks paying close attention. 28th. Initial R rating. When the production first presented Poltergeist to the MPAA, it came back branded with an R rating, primarily due to scenes like the face-ripping hallucination and the overall intensity. Spielberg appealed, arguing that he'd made a film that, while scary, was still anchored in a family narrative. With no PG-13 rating available in 1982, the MPAA ended up lowering the classification to PG. Decades later, some critics remark that Poltergeist can feel surprisingly visceral for a PG rating, showcasing how the rating system has evolved. It's also a testament to how Spielberg's reputation and track record for family films played into the final verdict. Today, it sits in that borderline zone, bridging the gap between childlike wonder and harrowing horror. 29th. Box office. Success. On a budget of roughly $10.7 million, Poltergeist pulled in around $121.7 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing horror film of 1982 and the biggest hit of Tobe Hooper's career. The film's balanced blend of childlike awe and jarring terror attracted audiences who might not usually watch straight-up horror. Its PG rating also expanded its reach, allowing younger viewers to experience a thrill ride that tiptoed into truly disturbing territory. That box office triumph solidified Poltergeist as a cultural phenomenon. Years later, critics would praise its craftsmanship, performances, and the unnerving sense that an otherwise loving family environment could be so swiftly upended by invisible, unstoppable forces. 30. Novelization clarifications. Finally, for those craving deeper lore, James Caan's novelization of Poltergeist delivered missing backstories. It clarifies that Dana, the eldest Freeling daughter, is from Steve's previous marriage, which explains why Diane could be just in her early 30s while having a 16-year-old stepdaughter. The book fleshed out side plots, character motivations, and even offered glimpses into the unseen world from which Carol Ann had to be rescued. In an age before streaming extras or special edition DVDs, novelizations were key to fans wanting to expand their understanding of a film's universe. For Poltergeist, it answered questions that might not have fit into the film's brisk running time, but still intrigued viewers who wanted to understand every nuance of the Freeling family dynamic. From the earliest sparks of Spielberg's imagination to Tobe Hooper's horror expertise, from real skeletons in waterlogged trenches to the heartbreak of losing cast members too soon, Poltergeist stands as a cinematic event that straddles the boundary between the ordinary and the uncanny. It was, in many ways, a perfect storm, a collaboration that walked the razor's edge between family-friendly blockbuster and genuinely unsettling horror. Its behind-the-scenes tales, from ghostly controversies to last-minute script changes, have become almost as famous as the movie itself. The Poltergeist Curse, real or imagined, has etched a lingering aura of mystique around the production, making it not just a film you watch for jump scares and sweeping special effects, but one whose very creation prompts reflection on chance, fate, and what we dare to disturb in our relentless drive to entertain. Ultimately, Poltergeist isn't merely about things that go bump in the night. It's about how quickly our sense of security can unravel when confronted with the inexplicable, and how, sometimes, getting back to normal might require facing terrors far beyond our comfort zone.